Hello, my name is Erica, and today I'm going to show you how to create a flat pattern for a truncated cone. So to begin, we want to set up the plan and elevation of the cone. Here I have a point that represents the tip of the cone in plan. And so from that, I'll make a circle that is 1.5 inches in radius, so I can have a 3-inch diameter circle, and from there we put in this XY line, and this will be extra useful once we are creating the flat cap for the top of the cone. And from this point we can go in and add lines coming up from the outsides and the center of the plan so we can correlate the elevation to it. And I want my cone to be 5 inches tall, so I do a 5-inch tall line, and now we can connect all these points with a polyline and delete the center point again. And now we should figure out how we want to truncate the cone, and I'm going to go for a medium amount of truncatedness. And I think this will be it for me. And let's put this in a different layer so that it doesn't get confused. And again, you can type P off to deselect the points that are still selected after you lock a layer. And our next step is to divide this plan into 8 different segments. So you just use the command divide and just 8 again, and there we have it. This time we will connect the sides, connect the divided points like so, and then I recommend going in and labeling, but first we will label O and O prime, and O just represents the tip. And when the numbers and letters are in plan, they're going to be plain, and when they're shown in elevation, they will include this apostrophe, which is just O prime. So there we have it. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and these numbers will be referenced throughout the tutorial. After we label and divide our circle, we can go and extend lines from each of these points up to the top, and make sure they're perfectly orthogonal. So you can either have perp on, ortho, or use the shift key. And now that we have all of them touching the XY line, we can go in and connect them to this O point up here. And now we will want to measure the edge of the cone, the full cone here. So to do that, you can type in distance and just click the bottom and then the top, and it looks like it's 5.22 inches. So from that, we want to make a line that comes straight out from the center of our plan, and this is going to be the center of our pattern. And so we will draw a circle based on a circle with a radius of 5.22 based on the thing we just got here, and then let's add a center point in, so you can turn center on in your OSnap tab and just type point. This will help us keep track of the middle. Great, and I like to turn center off because it gets very annoying and likes to snap to the center of everything. So now we are going to measure the length of our truncated cone here. And something funky with cones is the only parts that you can measure are the very sides of the elevations, because they are the lines with true length. And so measuring this length here would do us no good. And then, so before we start, we should actually label the different spots. So here I have 1 to 1 prime, and 2 and 8, and 2 prime and 8 prime, and so on. Okay, so now that we've labeled here, let's label the intersections along the truncated portion. And I'm going to start by just adding a few points at the intersections of these lines. And then we can just go in and add our labels. And I'm going to go from A to H. So since we are in the elevation, I'm going to use A prime and put that there. A prime there, and B prime. And B prime is going to share with C prime. Because these points, this point here represents both the front and the back of the elevation. And then we can just continue labeling. Great, now that our cut line here is labeled, we can measure along the true length, which is 1 prime to A prime, and draw that length into this circle here. So I'm just going to lock this and turn the points off again so that we don't get confused with all of the lines happening. And then you can type line and draw a line from 1 prime to A prime and select it again, and then use the orient tool to put it into our pattern from the edge of the circle and in. Great. And then let's also lock this line so we can see all of the things that are happening underneath. Great, so now that we've done the easiest side to measure the length of, great, so now that we've labeled all of our points and transferred 1 prime A prime over to our pattern, it's time to figure out the angle of the arc for the pattern. And to do that, we have a formula here, and that is theta equals 360 degrees times the base radius divided by the edge length. And so for us, our base radius is 1.5 inches and our edge length is 5.22 inches, and that gives us 103.4 degrees. And so we can go in to our pattern here and draw an arc, starting at the center and going out, and then just typing in 103.4. Next, we will divide this line into 8 pieces because our plan is also divided into 8 different pieces, and this will give us places to put each of the lengths that we figure out on the elevation of the triangle. Okay, we'll separate it into 8, and now we can go ahead and label them. So this one will just scoot on over there and basically continue the trend. So we have the 2 prime B, and the first step to figuring out the true length of these lines here in the middle of the cone is to draw a line straight out from each of those intersections so that you can measure the length based on the sides of the elevation. And for us, that looks like drawing a line from this base here to the intersection of the B prime C prime point and the true edge. And we can take this again and just orient it and put it over by put it where it belongs, which is 2B here. And then you can also put it over at the 8 prime C prime area. And now you just continue for the rest of them, and H repeats the same as A. Okay, so now that all the middle ones are done, we can do H prime, 5 prime, and we'll just continue the same drawing of the line to get the length of it, and then orienting said line to the direction it's supposed to be on the pattern. Awesome. And now we're pretty much done with our cone pattern, except for the tops and the bottoms. So our next step is to simply connect each of these lines, and we're missing one of them actually, which is the repeat of 1 prime A prime. So we'll just copy that down and orient it over here up to the center point, and now we have all of the points we need to create that. And for that I switched into my final layer, and so I'm going to use interp curve again so that the points stay exactly where we want them and the curve intersects those points rather than making them the control points. Awesome. So this is the completed curve here, and we just need to add in these. And so I just copy them over to the final layer, and we can hide the setup and just join all of these together. Awesome. And that'll do it for the flat pattern. And for the bottom cap, we will just draw in a circle that's the same radius as the bottom here. And so that'll be a 1.5 inch circle there. And now the tricky part is the top of the cone, because it is at an angle, and so it's hard to tell where it ends up on here. So here I'll just hide these so we don't get extra confused. The first step to creating the top, yes, so we move these points down into our plan yet again, and you can do that by just dragging the lines down and wherever they intersect with their line. So A prime to 1 prime, you'll want to intersect A and 1, and then we'll go in and label that. And then we'll do the same thing for the other letters. And so our first interior one will stop at 2 because B goes with 2 and C goes with 8. And we can go in and label those. And I forgot to do it on the first one, but we should add points in here so the lines don't get too lost. And this one is tricky because, as you can see, if we dragged this line down here, we can't tell where it intersects number 3 or number 7. And so we will continue with the same kind of technique as the last time, where you drag the line out horizontally to the true edge of the elevation, and then from this point we will drag it down to the horizontal line here and create a circle that goes from the center point O out to this intersection here. And that will give us the heights of the locations of the intersections. So there will be one there and then also one there, and we can go in and hide the circle. And the next one we will do is label them. Next, for f prime g prime, we'll continue the same logic as in b prime c prime. Awesome. So now we have all of these points that make up this kind of elongated circle, misshapen, off-centered, elongated ellipse here. This represents the cutoff portion of the cone. So just using the interp curve again, we will go in and connect all of these points. I messed that one up. And if you miss a point, you can just Control Z and it'll delete the point you just placed. Great, and this is our cutting plane from the plan view. And I'll just hatch this so we can tell what it is. We will move on to the actual projection of the face in its true size. And the first way we do that is to draw another XY line. This time it'll be called the X1, Y1 line by just creating a line here and here, just copying it and scooting it over and then enlarging it. We can proceed by drawing perpendicular lines to each of these through here, and so it'll help if you have the perp line on. You can also draw a line here and then rotate it 90 degrees. Awesome. Now we want to extend all of these lines past it a bit, and so I'm just moving this line out there. I used the copy command, and now we can use the extend command to extend all these lines, and we can delete this. So now comes a part similar to when we were making this, and that involves finding the distance between the XY line and the points here. So first I'm going to go in and label these. Label that like so. And so to find the points from here, we will go in and draw a line from the intersection of this A prime to A line, which happens here at the XY plane, and drag it all the way down to A. And then with that line, we will orient it from there to up here at A prime. Just kidding. We will orient it from there to the X1, Y1 line, and that will give us the point at which A is. And then we just continue the same logic for each one. So we have B here, and we'll orient it, and then coming out from here like so. And then we want to do the same thing for C. and put it in the same spot as it was before. Great, we've moved through all of them and are placing the last H line there. And then again, I like to go in and add points at the intersections just because we can't see the lines that are on top of each other. Awesome. And this will give us, okay, there's an extra line here. This point is incorrect. It's a good thing we caught it. It would have looked pretty funky. There the point goes. And it would probably help if you just added the points straight after doing the lines, but for some reason I did not do that. And again, switching into that final layer and drawing the interpolated curve around all of the points to connect them smoothishly. Great. And that gives us the top of our cone. And so you can just follow the same instructions as before to print, just drawing that rectangle of the size of your paper and placing all of your, let's turn off everything else so we can just see the final. And one easy way to turn things off is to just select all of them and then they will all do the same thing, which either turning all of them off, locking all of them, or changing them to the same color or material or line type just treats them as one line. And we can copy these to over here, and this will let you print now. So now that we've printed our flat patterns, you want to cut them out with scissors and make sure you add in tabs on there at some point, either along the bottom rim of the big swoop or on the circles, and definitely add a tab to the short ends of the cone where you're going to attach them. Now we have a truncated cone with a top and a bottom, and a pretty cool drawing because we have so many little construction lines in there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.